Hello, I am Leah-Anne and joined here with me today is Mahdiya. We are going to be analysing a narrative of a fashion film locally produced in South Africa by the name of The Herder. I'm just going to discuss a little bit what the film is about. So we go first to our opening scene of The Herder, which presents us with a delightful sight of a beautiful black woman dressed head to toe in white garments, with bold pieces of jewellery and elaborate accessories. The next scene takes us to a second character who is standing boldly on what appears to be boulders, forefront of a desert-like landscape, also layered with chunky geometric-like jewellery. We then move on to our third character, who is displaying a sense of pride and confidence in her stance. The women throughout the film maintain powerful-looking postures and gestures through their movement and body. We're going to move on to our second layer of meaning, which is looking at our collective meaning. So firstly, the song Mama Ariar, which is the soundtrack of the film by Afro Celt Sound, is sung in Kenya-Rwanda language. And so the song directly translates to "My mother is crying and my mother is crying. She cried when she grew up, she cried when she was hungry, she cried when she was thirsty, she cried and killed." The general meaning of this film speaks to the myth of Kiwig, which follows Rwandan mythology, of Gasana, which means mother goddess. She was barren and could not bear children, which left her palace empty and silent. The myth of Kiwig offers great insight into understanding the stress of gender norms that were culturally practiced in early Rwanda society.
We now move on to the thematic meaning of the film. There are various themes evident in the fashion film The Herder. The strongest theme that emerges is the gradual reversal of gender roles and how this leads to female empowerment. Typically in African culture, the men are seen as the herders and hunters, and the females are seen as the gatherers and homemakers. In this film, the female is placed in what is typically known as the male role. The female performs the herding task with grace and strength and completes this task with just as much efficiency as the male typically would. In the fashion film The Herder, the viewer is responsible for deducting the meaning of the narrative. The styling acts as a communicator of the film's intent. The viewer is met by a female dressed in all white, and she is the beholder of the staff, which acts as a symbol of power and leadership, hence leaving the viewer understanding that she is the main character. The other female models are adorned in shades of white and beige, which contribute to the ideology that the herder is the models depicted. The female models depicted in the herder are adorned in strong silhouettes and earthy toned pieces of clothing accompanied by heavy jewelry. The fabrication is a mix of utilitarian and adornment. The costume choices, as well as the choice of fabrication and loose fabrics, links to the proposed narrative of the female herders being empowered in a typically male-dominated role.
Now we're going to have a look at how the location of this film has further pushed the narrative that Fenter is trying to portray here. The location links back to the narrative in such a metaphorical way. Aforementioned, the myth of Kiwig explores the importance of parenthood and conceiving children, which ultimately added value to one's position in society. The myth speaks about the mother goddess who is impotent and unable to bear children, essentially. She is barren, much like this arid land. The land looks inhabitable, much like the woman's womb, which is unable to provide the capacity to grow a child.
The herder pushes the boundaries of narrative from the beginning of the film. Simply in the title, one would expect the herder to be a man according to gender stereotypes. The viewer is met by 3 female herders. Besides the actors being female, they are black females. This narrative is important as it acts as a form of black empowerment. Black women would not typically be placed in positions of power due to racism and culturally allocated roles.
Upon analysis of this film, The Herder, it is very evident that this film is about female empowerment. And you could even say black female empowerment. We see a combination of masculine and feminine elements combined through the garments. We see metaphorical translations of the location and the narrative of this film, the collective meaning which talks to mythology, Rwandan mythology. This film in its entirety is spectacular. The narrative is clearly communicated if you just look a little bit deeper.
Thank you so much for watching.